Alright, what's up, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen? We're bringing you the Derevi deck list because a lot of you have asked multiple times over and over, so we're going to bring it to you. I know these aren't the most popular videos, the deck list videos, but enough people want to see them, so we're going to do one today. Looks like the last couple of days, so didn't upload much over the weekend like I usually try to. And we'll also talk about the Sylvan Primordial ban at the end of the video because I think it's kind of worth discussing in a short little video, part of the video. So we'll start. I didn't order these by any kind of class like I usually do because most of the cards kind of fit similar purposes. I mean, the creatures want to attack, so they just, they have special effects that makes them good. So we'll talk about that as we get to them. Alright, so we only have 3 basic land on the deck, which is kind of bad against the Blood Moon. You're just going to kind of have to hope you never run to Blood Moon. Derevi is obviously very mana intensive for his colors. He needs green, white, blue. You want him on turn 3 or 4, so you can't get a... Ooh, that's that thing. Oh, I didn't click the right thing. But you can't really mess around with your mana. You kind of need to have green, white, blue early on to get the effect of Derevi. So we have only 3 basics, so we want one of each at least. So if we get like Path to Exiled or Ghost Court or something, we have a basic land. Or the new Ruination card, the red one that came in the Commander product that like blows up all non-basics. That would still wreck us, but wouldn't be as bad. We have Flagstones of Trokar. We do run Armageddon in the deck. It's not a focus, but it is a super good card, so we had to include it. Also, one time I played Derevi and he actually was not personal tutor, it was a mystical tutor for Armageddon against me. When he was like way out on board, it was kind of silly, but figured it was worth running. And this helps you get a planes. You can get any non-basic planes as well. It doesn't have to be basic. So we have Minamo, which not super good. Sometimes people do play into it. They don't realize you can untap Derevi or some other guy, and you can just get them. And I actually have them with a Ganjo Castle. Some guy attacked me into Derevi to like trade with Derevi, but then I just prevented 2 damage and Derevi lived because it was like a 3/3, and then Derevi was it was like 3/2, and he was a 2/3, and this saves 2 damage to a legendary creature. There are a couple other legendary creatures this is relevant with as well. And then we have Special Visions because early card draw that's really cheap is always good, especially when you have a lot of cheap cards. You can kind of empty your hand pretty fast. Then Pact of Negation. So you can Pact of Negation, and the downside of paying 5 on your next upkeep isn't as bad because you get to attack with Derevi and other creatures, and then untap your permanents, like your lands, and then you can cast spells anyway. So it's kind of like you get 2 free turns worth of mana with Derevi for the most part, and Pact is basically like sort of Force of Will. And also, you're just kind of an aggressive deck. You don't want to lose to Wrath. You kind of just want to tempo your opponents out and kill them as fast as possible, and Pact lets you do that. Mana Crypt, because it's broken and really good. And if they wanted to ban any cards, they should just ban Mana Crypt Soul Ring, but they never will. I mean, at least they'll never ban Soul Ring because it's in the Commander products every year, and I don't know. They say it's not as good in 4-player, but from my experience, when I've had turn 1 Soul Rings in 4-player games, I've usually won those games. So, Avacyn's Pilgrim. A creature, taps for mana, helps you cast Derevi. Llanowar Elves, same thing. Androgynous Speaker, 2nd Soul Ring. And it's a creature that can attack, hold a sword, etc. Condemn. Good removal path, and Sword's also a good 1-drop removal. And then we have Azorius Signet and Simic Signet for early ramp. Helps you get Derevi's Flash ability on turn 3, and fixes your mana because you do run some colorless lands, which can be a problem if you draw a bunch of colorless lands and no way to filter them. And then Stoneforge is pretty insane in this deck. We're running 3 swords, Jite. Not running Batterskull. I guess you could run Batterskull if you want more life gain. But I don't. I mean, you could play it. I just don't. It's kind of a preference. Batterskull obviously shines in a Stoneforge deck because it's a free 4/4 Vigilance lifelink that recurs itself. But it's usually people play Batterskull when they should. They just play it in random control decks. It's not the best thing. But you could play Batterskull. I also don't play Skullclamp. Skullclamp's another thing you could play to get rid of some of the elves. There's not a ton of ways to abuse Skullclamp, which is why I don't have it. Then we have Grand Abolisher because basically attacks. I like Grand Abolisher. Its card has not played a lot, and it actually does mess with people quite a bit. We're not running a lot of counters, so we don't have a lot of ways to protect our good spells, and Grand Abolisher is one way you can do that. He is weak to wraths because if your opponent, you drop a bunch of creatures and then they wrath, and you can't do much about it because Grand Abolisher doesn't do much other than attack, block, and stop them from doing things on your turn. But people will forget, and they'll try to do things on your turn. They'll leave up mana. They'll pass the turn, and then they go to tap their mana, and then they realize what they've done, and it's kind of funny. And then Mana Drain because it's insane. It's a ritual. Enough said. Winter Orb. So not everyone's favorite card. I mean, people don't like Winter Orb. I guess I heard someone said in my videos that Derevi was banned. I guess he was banned in like this specialized 1v1 paper format that people play. But people don't. It's not supported in MTGO, so Derevi is still going to be running around being annoying. That format also doesn't have like Soul Ring Mana Crypt, but it has like Emrakul on it, so it's kind of a weird thing. But Winter Orb is good because you get to have a lot of things that are good with Winter Orb. Like you have the Mana Rocks, you have Derevi's untap effect, you also have 2 untapped creatures like Prophet of Krufix and Seedborn Muse, so you can play Winter Orb. And if you have one of these on a battlefield, you just untap all your lands on their turn anyway, which is just pretty awesome. So, I mean, it's not the goal of the deck. You kind of need to be a little bit ahead in order to play Winter Orb. You don't just slam Winter Orb and then when you have like a creature, you don't like an Eternal Witness and then just drop Winter Orb and then they can just kill you pretty easily. And then Jite. A lot of like elf decks and stuff just scoop the Jite. Jite gets out of hand. It's also good against a lot of indestructible things. And that's that. So, 3 drops. So we have Coalition Monk, another way to fix our mana. If you can't cast Derevi on turn 3, which sometimes you just cast him, you don't always flash him in. Because you want to cast him turn 3, and then if they kill him, you just flash him in the next turn. But you can cast him turn 3, and then play another creature, and attack with Derevi, and then you get some benefit with his untap right away. Crucible, we have a lot of fetch lands, we do have Strip Mine. Mostly, it's for the fetch lands, that's why you have Crucible, just so good to recur them. You have to be careful though, because you don't have a lot of basics, so you're not going to be able to get a lot of value out of Crucible in the long term. You're going to get, for each land, maybe 2 or 3 fetches, so you're going to have to be really careful. You're going to have to hope to draw the other ones eventually. Mimic Fat, good when you're wrathing, because you do have a lot of value creatures like Stoneforge, I mean, also it's good against their creatures too, very often. So Mimic Fat's a very good card. It's always one of those must-kill cards that's really hard to deal with. If you sort of Feast and Famine, I mean, obviously in Sam Derevi you can attack for free, basically, and tap all your lands, untap other permanents you want to untap with Derevi's ability instead of your lands. Discards a card, gets you protection. Enough said, but it obviously gets a little bit crazy with Derevi in play. Sword of Fire Eyes, card draw, and removal. Light and Shadow, we are playing quite a few creatures, so it gets a little better. Sometimes you just use it for the evasion, and another thing to note is with any of these swords, Derevi cannot target himself to untap, so you can't just attack with Derevi and then untap him with the ability, because he gets protection from his own colors, so you can't do that. Just so you know that. Which is kind of interesting, just so you know, because his trigger is green, white, blue, and he has protection from all those with these swords. Dismantling Blow, so disenchant with a kicker that you can use. Sometimes you just have to cast it for its normal cost. Aura Shards, I had one guy tell me in one game that this is like the most broken card in EDH or something, and it is a really broken card, but like it killed like one of his artifacts, so it wasn't even like it just 1-for-1'd him. Kind of weird. I mean, it is a broken card. I've never actually got to play with it, so I was kind of excited I got to play with it finally. And it's been pretty good, but what people will tend to do is just not play out their artifacts, which can be really annoying. Obviously, it is a very good card, so don't discount that. And it's cheap. Even Mind's. Oh, yeah, another thing about Aura Shards, you can flash Derevi in after you cast Aura Shard in turn 3, and then Even Mind Sensor. Always fun to try and get people with this. Doesn't happen too often, but when it does, it feels good, so it's worth trying. Plus, he's Flash. He's a Flag, has evasion. Works with Derevi. And then Edric, the card I really don't like. I like, as a general, he's a little annoying because people usually tend to fill their decks with a bunch of like Flying Man and Script Sprites, and it's just like, ugh, I'm losing to those decks. Because they're just gonna tag Flying Man, Script Sprites, and then Mana Leak you until you lose, basically. Take Time Walks. But in this deck, he's pretty cool because you're gonna be able to draw cards, untap your lands, and then cast things off the cards you draw. So I like him. Also good Intuitive Giant because your teammate gets the effect as well. Eternal Witness, so obviously it gets you any card out of a graveyard. It's like a regrowth with a 2/1, so 2/1 that can attack, something that can go underneath like Mimic Fat, so very good. And has sweet art as well. And then Fiend Hunter, I found Fiend Hunter to be pretty sweet because it's underrated card in Commander. I'm surprised people aren't playing it more because it's like a Faceless Butcher, but it's pretty cheap. I mean, it doesn't do a lot of damage, but it can hold a sword and it just kills the commander. Like, people are going to generally just put their commander to the, like, command zone. They aren't going to wait until they can kill Fiend Hunter because they never know if they're going to draw that removal. So what they usually do is they just put their commander to the command zone, and then Fiend Hunter just basically is a free removal spell on a guy. And I like that. I'm surprised he hasn't seen more play than already what I've seen. So keep that in mind. A kind of underrated sleeper card. Trinket, oh, that kills tokens, obviously. Trinket Mage gets you Mana Crypt and Soul Ring. It doesn't get you anything else. It's a little awkward. You could put Sensei's Top in here if you wanted to. I just don't have it. It's hard to make cuts for this deck. We have True Name Nemesis, so obviously there's protection with player. He's really good in 1v1. He's okay in 2v2, 2 at a giant. And 4-player, he probably gets a lot worse because he's just going to get killed by something. And also he dies to Wrath. So you don't want to just... if you're already head on board and you draw a True Name Nemesis, don't just spew him on the battlefield because the only thing you're going to lose to is a Wrath. And he's obviously not very good against those. And then the other one blue card is Vanillion Click, so it's a flash card, it has a nice effect, it can attack, has evasion, works with Derevi, etc. So, Vanillion Click, nice card. I haven't got to play with it much, but there it is. So, Birthing Pod. Birthing Pod chain isn't the most powerful, but it lets you get cards that you need to get to, and I like it. And Birthing Pod is always scary. People will use their disenchants on it. Lux Cannon, so the sweet Mamma Jamma to untap. Put a charge counter, and you can stack the untap effects with Derevi, so you can charge it, 3, 4, 5 times a turn, and just vindicate people every turn. And it's really hard to deal with if once this gets online and they can't stop you. And it's just kind of cool. Just reminds me of the Death Star cannon. Just blows anything up. And I know it's a casual card, but I like it. And Thran Dynamo, obviously really nice when you're untapping it because you're getting a lot of mana, and it's a sweet card. Armageddon, kaboom. Supreme Verdict, another boom. Just kind of like a panic button when you're losing or behind, and you're like when there's playing elves, like you usually can't compete too much with elves because they're just gonna overrun you and you're just gonna die. So you definitely want this for elves, and there isn't a lot of way to tutor it. There isn't really any way, I don't think, but it's kind of a catch-all that you're gonna need at some point. And then Cryptic Command, counter draw, tap all their permanents to attack them. Very nice card. Frozen Aether. So I like Frozen Aether a lot in this deck because you already want to get in with Derevi. He's not the biggest creature. And if you don't have like color evasion, like protection, then you're not going to be able to get in. But you really want to get the tap on tap effect. So Frozen Aether really helps that. Slows your opponents down. This is a very much so tempo deck, so Frozen Aether helps quite a bit. And it kind of shines in this deck actually. I've had many people at end of games tell me like, wow, that Frozen Aether just really, really got me because they had an out, but Frozen Aether just took that away. So Elspeth, enough said, put a 1/1, give a guy an evasion, +3/+3, and then making your things indestructible. And then Jace, card draw, a finisher, an unsummon, very good guy. Very good guy. I don't play a lot of the... There's only two... what do you call them? The only two Planeswalkers this deck plays because they both kind of fit the theme of trying to get in, and the unsummon is, relevant. You get up to 3 unsummons without doing anything else if he doesn't get attacked. And then Glenelendra, attacker, protection from non-creature spells like Wraths. And yeah, people will play around this. They'll cast a non-creature spell, they'll sack it, and then they'll try to cast another one in response. To its Undying Trigger, Persist, rather. And then Grand Arbiter, another way to slow your opponents down, make your spells cheaper. You know Grand Arbiter does. Hero, Bladehold, and this is a card that I didn't put in the original cut version, but I don't know why I didn't, because it makes 2/1/1s that become 2/1s if you stack your triggers properly, so always make sure you stack them properly in MTGO. And you get a lot of untaps, and it's just a sweet card. It's really hard to deal with if you don't just kill it right away. Or kill it eventually. And then Hikori, another Winter Orb, another attacker, a troll face. He's got the funniest face ever. Like, just look at him. Troll face Hikori. People don't like this card, I understand why. But it has synergy with the deck, so it goes in there. And Oracle Medaya. Not the best in the deck, but it's good to get, filter your lands out and then draw gas and then Rafik. So you might want to think a Rafik deck on its own might be better, but I don't know. Derevi's really powerful, and he works nicely with Derevi because you can just put a sword on Derevi, double strike him, untap things, do a lot more broken things. Good when you have Edric out there. Just Rafik's a nice guy. You're not always going to have Exalted going on, but when you do, you like it. So Gilded Lotus, another good untapped target, another good color fixer. So we have a Time Warp. That's only one. That's the only one I can make room for. Some people might want to play more. I just think one's good enough. Force of Will. It's another way to protect your board. Gideon Jura. Oh, that's the other. I did have another Planeswalker. Pretty nice when you have, what do you call it? Frozen Aether, because all their creatures can come into the battlefield tapped. Forces your opponents to attack him so you can get in, and then you can also use Derevi's tap effect, where you tap their creature and then destroy it with Gideon. Gideon's got really nice synergy with the deck. Acidic Slime, kind of catch-all. Death Touch, good thing to Birthing Pot into and out of. Deranged Hermit makes a bunch of attackers, so Deranged Hermit's pretty sweet, and I like it a lot in this deck, actually. Makes, 10 power? 9 power? Yeah, still pretty good. Then Prophet. This card is so annoying to play against. It's so annoying because you just never know if you can actually attack. They get to cast creature cards as though they had flash and tap all your lands. So if you're playing a multiplayer game, you can take 3 or 4 turns. Per turn, you get to take 3 turns or 4 turns. So everyone's turn becomes your turn, and although you can't cast non-creature spells, it's still pretty insane. And then Seedborn Muse, similar effect, but you don't get to untap. You don't get to cast things with flash. That lets you untap just lands and creatures. This lets you untap all permanents, like artifacts, enchantments. If you need to untap an enchantment, which there are some, you could. And then the big bad Stoneware Giant. He's just so good. More people should play this guy if they're playing weight equipment at all. I don't see him a ton, but he's just so hard to deal with if he doesn't just die. He just gets all of your good equipment and you make a big Voltron-y anything, like Stoneware Giant. Also gives you easy attacks because you get to attack with all your creatures with impunity. Whatever they block or don't block, you get to either give that guy protection from the color that they blocked with. Like if they block Derevi with a 4/4, you can just give it a sword that gets +2/+2 and kill that creature. I guess we have another Planeswalker. I just haven't played this deck in a while. Excuse me. And then Elspeth puts a bunch of soldier tokens on the battlefield, destroys creatures with power 4 or greater, which you don't have a ton. You do have some, so you have to be careful. Just don't spew this off right away. And the emblem is obviously insane. And the Arcanist untap effect gets crazy if you have Derevi triggers. Card draw, which the deck does need some. It has it, so this is one of them. And you can attack to finish off your opponent. And then Consecrated Sphinx draw. This card's crazy. Sun Titan's good. You have a lot of 3-drops that can get blown up. All these cards, besides the counter spells and such, can go back. And then Avenger is the top of the list. He's the 7 mana, big dude. You have to put a winged green plant creature token for each land, and whenever you put a land on the battlefield, you may get a +1/+1 counter on each plant. So, very good. You can swarm your opponent, get a ton of untaps because you're attacking with all these little plant tokens that can get bigger and bigger, and he gets pretty nice with fetch lands as well, as you probably know. And then lands. These are the colors like Utility Lands, Ancient Tomb, Seaside Haven. Pretty nice because if you're running low on cards or you just don't have anything to do, you just sack Derevi. And Derevi always flashes in for the same cost. He always costs 1 green, blue, white. And you get a free card out of him. And he's a bird. So there you go. Seaside Haven. Derevi was made for this card, basically. Strip Mine, Reliquary Tower, which you can draw a ton of cards, so Reliquary Tower can be pretty nice. Core Haven, good to protect yourself, your planeswalkers. It's like a Maze of Ith, but costs mana and doesn't untap their creature, which is nice. And then High Market, another way to sack Derevi if you need to tap one of their creatures down. So let's say you're facing down a creature that's going to kill you. You can sack Derevi end of their turn, and then wait till their turn next turn, and then tap their creature or something. If you want to just tap something or untap something. High Market's very nice for that. And I actually didn't really talk much about Derevi, so I'm sure you know what Derevi does. 2/3, and then enters the battlefield. A creature you control deals combat damage to a player. You get to tap or untap a permanent. So put Derevi onto the battlefield from the command zone. So you can do that for instant speed, and it never gets more expensive no matter how many times Derevi dies. Only thing he's super weak to, like any commander that doesn't have hexproof, is tuck effects. So if you do cast Derevi and gets hindered, it just goes away, and then condemn, spin into myth. But that's also why you want to have like high market and things like that. Those are like our lands that you can get all a bunch of colors. Cavernous Souls, which is pretty nice. You have a lot of creatures. There isn't a lot of tribals, so you kind of have to pick which creature you want and then put that in there. It is a color fixer for Derevi if you're not getting the right lands, so you sometimes just put it on bird. Or you actually just usually put on a wizard. There are a few wizards in the deck. Like this, Trinity Mage. This a wizard. I think there's more wizards than anything else. Maybe humans next up. Reflecting Pool, Seaside Citadel, Fetch Lands, and then other duels. So we've got the man lands, Social Colonnade, and Stirring Wildwood, which are both really good. And we have the bounce lands. I usually don't really like. I have this one. I think I cut the other ones for other duels. You want to play a lot of these because people will strip mine them, Wasteland, Tech Edge, Acidic Slime, etc. And it really sucks to get those things hit. So yeah, that's the deck. I don't think it's the perfect Derevi deck. I kind of just made it based on what I had, what I wanted to play with. And there was a card I was thinking about when I wasn't at the computer, and I was like, oh my god, that card would be so good in Derevi, and I just forgot what it was. So I'm probably missing a bunch of things that would be really good. I think Derevi, the nice thing about him is he doesn't really force you to play anything. You can kind of play so many different things, and that's why he's so good. He can just do so much with so many different creatures, and I think you could make so many different Derevi decks. Like, you can make more of the Winter Orb deck, you can make more of a aggressive deck. More of a control deck, obviously, but Bait Control's been done more and more. I mean, more than anyone ever wants to see. And then these are cards I had thought about, but I cut, like, Daxos would have been nice. I kind of like Daxos. I had to cut him to make room for other cards. I could see putting him in there for, like, maybe True Name Nemesis or something. Because you get to, like, play cards for free, because you get to untap your lands after you attack if you have Derevi on the battlefield. So you actually get to cast the things that you exile sometimes if you don't just hit land like I always do. And then Rock Skull Reaver, he does have 7 mana, so he's a little expensive. But he has double strikes, so you get 2 triggers and lifelink, which is nice, and then drawing cards. So that's the deck. If you have any questions, let me know. If any comments, if suggestions, obviously, you can throw that out there. Thanks to Ghost of Oblivion for giving me the pre-constructed deck to build it off of, and then Torx let me borrow a bunch of cards, so he's pretty nice of him to do that. Also, what else? Oh, the Sylvan Primordial ban. So, a lot of people were like upset about it, a lot of people were happy about it. I mean, Sylvan Primordial, the thing about him is he's not the worst card ever printed for like Commander, but he's just annoying because you can be so far ahead of your opponent, and then this one guy can just drop Sylvan Primordial, especially in a 4-player game, and just blow up like 3 things, kill everyone's best non-creature permanent, get 3 lands, and then if he dies, it gets put under maybe like a Mimic Vat or it gets reanimated, and it has an instant effect, so everyone's just blowing everything up, and it just becomes like kind of annoying. I think in 1v1 he was annoying but fine. I'm not surprised he's gone. I think he was obviously more annoying in 4-player games where you could blink him with like Deadeye Navigator, but I don't know. I'm like kind of like not surprised, but he did have reach, which is nice because it's something that green wanted, and there wasn't a lot of strong cards that had reach. Like you could play like Stinger Fling Spider or something in mono if you want to play mono green. So that's kind of a hit for mono green. I think in mono green he was definitely fine, but once you got to like Bant blink decks that were just being really annoying with Sylvan Primordial, we played one. I think it was me and Torx were playing. I actually was recording it, but I lost all the audio. And actually, the audio just didn't record. And the guy had a Sylvan Primordial and a Deadeye Navigator. And I Wrathed, and he could have... he had also a Crystal Shard, so he could have returned... like, Sylvan Primordial... Or he could have returned something to his hand, and he just, like, F6, and he didn't. But then it got under my Mimic Vat. So once Sylvan Primordial was on my Mimic Vat, I just crushed... we just slowly crushed our 2 opponents. And if it wasn't for Sylvan Primordial, I think we would have easily lost that game. Also, if he just Crystal Sharded it back, we would have easily lost it. So, I don't know. I don't like that about that card. It's a little undercosted. I think it should have been at least 8 mana. Like, Woodfall Primus is fine. Like, Woodfall Primus has recursion. But Like you have to actually have a combo. I guess with full premise to sack out Lin McCase is pretty annoying as well, but you just don't see that as much. Anyways, I'm kind of finding a way with the ban. The way it is now, it's fine. The way it was, sure. But you have till Wednesday to play with it online if you want to play with it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.